Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Inshallah, we will just take an introduction about the next chapter, which is Salat al-Eid, the prayer of the Eid. Before that, actually, something interesting about the qira'at, the modes of recitation of the Quran. In this verse, just a piece of information that I had come across a long time ago, and when I recited the ayah, I remembered it. This verse, وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. The meaning is that whoever is blind in this life, meaning towards the truth, towards his creator, towards his duty towards Allah, blind towards religion in general, spiritual blindness, فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. Then he is even more blind in the hereafter. And وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا means he is even more astray over there, more lost than he is lost here. And this is supported by other parts, other verses in the Quran, such as in Surah Taha, فَمَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. So, and also, وَنَحْشُرُهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ عُمْيًا وَبُكْمًا وَصُمًّا. So the verses are clear and recurring in the fact that people who are taken to the fire of hell, may Allah save us, are taken in a state of blindness. And in this last verse I mentioned عُمْيًا وَبُكْمًا وَصُمًّا, which means that they can't hear, they can't see, and bukm also, and they can't even make a word. Of course, other verses indicated that that's what during the Hashr, نحشرهم يوم القيامة على وجوههم, after the verdict has been said and they have no excuse, they are just pulled to the fire of hell in that miserable state. The part that I would wanted to mention about the qira'ah, as you've noticed, the qira'ah we're reciting Surah Al-Isra with is different from the previous qira'ah. Qira'ah that we recited multiple surahs before that was the qira'ah of Warsh. This new qira'ah, this other qira'ah I'm reciting right now is the qira'ah of As-Susi and Abi Amr al-Basri. This qira'ah was famous in Basra in Iraq long time ago. Qira'at Warsh was famous in Medina also initially long time ago when those imams were living, the people who mastered this qira'ah. And basically the way those qira'at are referenced to those people is not that those people it's not that those people are the only ones who recited it. No, they were the head of the recitation, they were the masters of this recitation in the city they lived in. So قراءة ورش عن نافع, ورش عن نافع, Nafi' lived in Medina and Warsh was his student, but the people of Medina recited that way, so, and he was the best of them, so he was the authority. So it's they labeled those qira'at based on the authorities that people used to flock from all over the Muslim world to learn the qira'ah from. For instance, Warsh, for instance, I think Imam Nafi' himself. Imam Nafi', people used to come to him from all over the Muslim world, and he lived at the same time with Imam Malik. So Imam Malik was a faqih, he was a jurist, he's a legal scholar, while Imam Nafi' is a Quran reciter. So Nafi' went to Imam Malik one time and asked him, people want me to lead the Taraweeh. He was the best reciter. People wanted him to lead Taraweeh. You know what Imam Malik told him? And that's very interesting. He said to him, no, I don't want you to lead the Taraweeh. He says, why? He says, because you are an authority in the Quran. And maybe you might make a mistake. Nobody doesn't make a mistake when he reads from memory. People come here to learn from you. Maybe if you're reciting from memory, maybe you make a mistake and somebody thinks it's a qira'ah or something. He goes home, think it's a qira'ah. He says, an authority like you, no, I don't want you to read except when you're sitting and you have the mushaf in front of you and you're 100% sure about everything you teach the people, so that nobody inadvertently listens to something and thinks it's a qira'ah. What led us to this, actually, sorry, I went off a little bit. What led us to this is this qira'ah, وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ, if you notice the way it was recited, وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. It's the same letter, the alif maqsura, It's the same letter, no difference, and the word is the same actually. But in the first, A'ma is recited differently from the second. If the qira'at were just basically by choice, then they should have sounded the same. It's the same word in the same ayah. Why is it different? Now these are secrets and intricate things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in His book that we only discover as we study more and more. But apparently there should be no difference. Even there's some qira'at where I noticed recently a verse in Surah Al-Mumtahana, قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ. It says for Ibrahim. In some qira'at it's for Ibrahim. And then at the end of the verse, إِلَّا قَوْلَ إِبْرَاهِيم. The first Ibrahim is recited Ibrahim, and the second one is recited Ibrahim. For a secret that up until now I haven't read anything about it. But this one I read somebody commenting on this. He says that A'ma is something called taqleel. Taqleel means that you recite the alif somewhere between the alif and ya. It's not a ya and it's not an alif. You lessen the strength of the alif a little bit by bringing it closer to the ya. But the second A'ma is a full alif, a full blown alif without any taqleel. Taqleel means to diminish the intensity of that letter. Okay? So subhanAllah, he says maybe one of the pieces of wisdom here is that the blindness in the hereafter is a more extreme blindness than the blindness in this world, because it's a punishment over there. So it's a total blindness. Even here you find people who are blind but they have insight and they have so much knowledge. Over there the blindness is total, is severe, and that is why it is more appropriate to pronounce the second A'ma as a full A'ma, while the first one had taqleel, which means that you lessen the intensity of the alif. Something very delicate, something I don't know, people have to think very hard to come up with explanations like this. But anyhow, we're going to Salat Eid. That was just a quick introduction. Eid comes from Aud, means repetition or recurrence, or comes from to come back at you, because Eid is something that is recurring every year, but also it is because the blessings of Allah are repeated on the Muslims and coming back at the Muslims every year, such as Eid al-Fitr, for instance, after being prohibited from eating and drinking during the daytime. Now it's allowed. So the blessing of Allah is showing you, this is my blessing, now you can enjoy it. Also people in Hajj, this is a blessing to go for Hajj, and also the benefits that come with Hajj and the Adahi, al-Udhiyah and so on. Udhiyah also is, and the happiness that comes back, all these are blessings from Allah Azza wa Jal. So they recur on the Muslims. And it is definitely an established prayer. Nobody has disagreed upon the Salat al-Eid, that it has to be established by the Muslims. It is in the Quran, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. This is Salat al-Eid. And Salat al-Eid al-Adha specifically here, you pray, then you do the nahr, right? The sacrificial animal. Was sunnah, it is well known because Prophet ﷺ used to pray it every year, and there's a hadith on this matter. And ijma' means all agreement, consensus of the Muslim scholars and Muslims in general, regardless of their different sects and schools of thought. Everybody says Salat al-Eid has to be established. But is it a fard on every individual, or is it a sunnah mu'akkada, or is it a fard kifaya, means it's a fard on a community? This is where they differed. And for instance, Imam Abu Hanifa feels it is a fard on every single individual. Like if you don't do it, you've committed a sin. While some other scholars, such as I think Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Ibn Hazm, those Imams feel it is a sunnah mu'akkada, that's a very stressed upon sunnah. While I'm not sure what Imam Ahmad says about it. Could be fard kifaya, but I will have to review that. But it's between one of the three things. Either it's a fard ayn, everybody has to do it, or sunnah mu'akkada. It comes next after the witr. They say it's a very strong sunnah, right in ranking, right after the stressed upon right after the witr in strength. Let's see what Imam Ahmad says And that is because the Prophet ﷺ used to tell everybody to go out for Eid. كنا نؤمر أن نخرج يوم العيد حتى نخرج البكر من خدرها حتى نخرج الحيض فيكن خلف الناس فيكبرن بتكبيرهم ويدعون بدعائهم ويرجون بركة ذلك يوم طهرته. The hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim, authentic hadith. He says, Atiyah says, we used to be commanded by the Prophet ﷺ, نؤمر, that we go out for Eid. Even the young ladies used to go out, and even the older ladies, even the ladies who had their period, they used to go out because it's not in the masjid, it's outside, right? So they used to stay behind a little bit at a distance from the place of prayer, because as you know, the place of prayer is a place of prayer. And in Islam, a woman who has her period is not supposed to be staying for a long period of time in the place of prayer. And then he said, فَيُكَبِّرْنَ, they used to do the takbir with the people, and they used to attend the dua, even though they can't pray. They used to attend the dua, the takbir, and they used to seek the barakah of that اليوم وطهرته. They used to seek the blessing of that day. Now, and the fact that it's the scholars who said it's not a fard, they said because Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, when a man came to ask him about Islam, he says to him, 5 prayers, 5 صلوات في اليوم والليلة, 5 prayers in day and night, between the day and night. He says, فقال هل علي غيره? He says, is there any other obligation on me but those 5? He says, لا إلا أن تطوع. No, there's no more obligation on you except those 5, unless you want to do more. Now, people who said it's fard, and that's a strong opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa here, it's a strong opinion. He said, he responded to this hadith that this hadith is talking about the daily obligation, while the Eid is not a daily obligation. The Eid is a yearly, annual obligation. So here the man was asking about a different subject. What do I have to do in the Yawm and Layla, in the day and night, okay? Maybe that's a good answer to this. And yes, Imam Ahmad says it is sunnah, it is fard kifaya, which means that the community has to establish it, just like the community has to establish Salat al-Janazah, for instance. And if they don't, then the sin is on the whole community. Naam. And that's in Al-Mughni. إن قام بها من يكفي سقطت عن الباقين. Like if enough people perform it, then the rest don't have to do it. But really, what do you feel is the stronger opinion here? What do you feel?
I think it's
probably a fard on. It seems from the hadith, yani, even if the women have to go out who are not going to pray, it seems it's probably an obligation, yani, on every individual to go out as long as he's capable. And even if women who didn't have to pray, they still went out. You know, for Friday prayer, men have to go out, but women, there's no problem, they can stay home. But for Eid, everybody has to go out. So
how do we categorize in that order? How do we categorize Salat al-Jum'ah?
Salat al-Jum'ah is Fard Ayn. Fard Ayn on men, yes.
Okay,
on men, yes, absolutely. And that's because, I mean, Salat al-Jum'ah Fard Ayn on men based on the practice of the Muslims. Yeah, we don't have a specific text that says women, no, it's not fard ayn on them, but we know from, yes, it is fard, the way it was commanded in the hadith that indicate that it is a fard, but women didn't it was not an obligation that they used to stay home or come, it's up to them. Naam. Okay, we'll stop here. Yeah.